What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, this is 4K Motoring, and today I've got another Ducati accessory video for you. This time speaking again about the navigation solution on the 2022 Multistrada V4S. You guys have seen the Sygic inbuilt navigation that we've tried. You guys have seen my eloquent solution of our wireless charging RAM mount here, or just our phone basically mounted on the handlebars. And now we have our Garmin Zumo XT2 mounted up, and we've been using it for a little while. So I want to share my overall thoughts with the total solutions I've come up with this bike and what I've found to be the most convenient. So I've spent about 2 months now with this on my bike, this Garmin Zumo XT2 GPS made for motorcycles. And it took a little while to really figure out how to best use it, but now that I've used it for a little while, I can tell you, I really think that this is going to be my ultimate solution to navigation on this bike, full stop. I know I've talked before about the Sygic inbuilt navigation. Ducati has done a really good job on their end of doing bug fixes and making it more reliable for the connection. So props to Ducati for at least trying to remedy a bad situation. But the app itself is just terrible. The navigation is awful. The algorithms, not great. The voice prompts, terrible. Overall, it's just not a good experience. Even when working 100% and connecting, it is not a good experience. So I'm really hoping that Bosch or whoever does the Wi-Fi unit here now supports some other solution than Sygic for the next generation Multistrada, because quite frankly, it is just trash. On top of the fact that our new phone mount with this inbuilt fan right here in the center of our bike now shrinks down the area that you can fit a phone. And I guess Ducati doesn't realize that, at least in the US, I don't know about the rest of the world, the phones we use here are not tiny, and they do not fit in this little tiny cubby. For those of you that have been watching my channel, you know this is not news to you. You know this system really has not changed other than being a little bit more reliable, has not become any more useful or improved since it originally came out several years ago. That led me to the phone mount, and I know there's a couple different solutions. We use the quad lock on some of our bikes. This is the RAM mount that I've used for many years. This particular one is the wireless charging head, which makes it easy to keep my phone topped off without having to plug in wires or worry about waterproofing. So I do like that solution. And overall, it worked well with Google Maps and the voice prompts, making it really easy to search for things, and overall just get decent navigation, not motorcycle specific, but decent navigation while riding the motorcycle. On public roads, this was a really good solution. On road trips, it did traffic avoidance and stuff like that. So really, overall, as just a travel companion, I don't have a lot bad to say about this. It worked pretty well, and it kept my phone out. It was in the sun, so it did get a little bit hot, but at least it got airflow. As long as you were moving, it had plenty of airflow, so there's really not any sort of overheating issues that I had. The worst it would do would be to stop wireless charging just because it got too hot. That's one of the first things it shuts off because that generates some heat. But it never did anything to the point of running the battery down or anything like that. Just with a nearly full battery, it would shut off the wireless charging if the phone got hot, just because it really didn't need it to generate that kind of heat. So now we come to my final solution, which is the Garmin Zumo XT2. Now this is a motorcycle specific GPS, as I mentioned. It is mounted to the bike itself and wired to power. So every time the bike turns on, it turns on. And it's nice to not have to worry about taking something out of your pocket to plug it in. It is just there in front of you. That said, that feature alone really isn't enough to make me want to spend the extra money on one of these units as opposed to just putting my phone on the handlebars. So Garmin does offer a couple things that make this stand out pretty well and make it pretty unique for motorcycling, something that I've really enjoyed so far. Obviously, Garmin always does the little warning here, but when we get to our menu, there's a couple options. When we do our view map, obviously we can get our little motorcycle there, which is just kind of cool. It is very easy to see. We have our speed data, we have our overall direction stuff, and we have a very easy to use map. When we start doing routing, we can set an address. We can go to a recent one. Let's just go somewhere that's 19 miles away. We get a couple options. So we have our efficient option, which is just our basic route guidance if you just want to get somewhere. But we have our motorcycle one, this twisty road option. And when we select that, we have this slider to say how adventurous we want it to be. So it's calculating at a 1, adventurous, not very. It's taking us on mostly interstate and nothing too fun. As we go to a 4, on the other end of that spectrum, it is all back roads, it is twisty, it is constantly moving back and forth, and this does have a database of popular roads and motorcycle routes that it will incorporate in. So that is pretty cool. I've liked that a lot. It takes the guesswork out of finding just an interesting way to ride and plans it all for you. When you're doing route guidance, when you complete your trip and arrive at your destination, it'll actually give you kind of an analysis of your trip overall to include G-forces, acceleration and braking, and some of your speeds. It'll put that all on a nice little graphic, which I think is actually kind of cool. I actually kind of enjoy that. This thing pairs with an app on the phone, and it does update itself on Wi-Fi, so every time it turns off, it does check for updates, so it keeps current, which I really like. The struggle I've had, and the only thing that it's really bothered me, and I know this is probably a Multistrada specific problem, if you have a bike that doesn't have kind of the inbuilt Bluetooth system for the infotainment system itself, you probably don't have this issue. I run a Cardo Edge, as you guys have seen, and in doing so, it has only about 2 Bluetooth channels for inputs that it's able to give you. It'll do the phone or bike, you can do kind of either one or second phone, and GPS or second phone. So I've got it set up where my phone is paired to the bike, my bike is then paired to my Cardo, so I've got all the music transferring, the phone calls, that sort of stuff all goes through the bike to my headset, which means I can use the handlebar controls here to basically control music, take phone calls, that sort of thing, all with the bike itself, which is really nice. But then when I add the GPS, the Ducati system won't let me pair the GPS to the bike. It's being kind of weird about doing that, but I can pair the GPS to the GPS function on the Cardo itself as the second Bluetooth source. So although the Garmin will act as your full Bluetooth hub, where you can just pair your phone to it and pair it to your headset normally, it will control your music and give you just kind of a bigger screen that's on the dash for you, that you can control all that stuff pretty easily. We're letting our bike do that, so we really just want the navigation on the GPS. When it plays through to the Cardo, and this, I don't know if it's a Garmin factor or a Cardo issue, where it will, when it's switching back and forth between sources, it'll blank out for a minute and cause just a very short duration of kind of wonkiness. You might miss the initial command from the GPS, and when it switches back to music, it has kind of some speed playback issues until it gets caught up. So it's not an ideal scenario yet. It is pretty close, but it's not perfect. For those of you that are interested, the GPS does, with the press of a button here on top, pop right off, and we do have a cover to cover these pins to keep them waterproof if you do remove this thing. That way it doesn't get stolen. For the Multistrada specifically, there's a bracket that we use that basically just attaches in front of the windshield here and just gives us a mounting point for the Zumo itself. For the wiring, we just basically borrow that same nav wire that we powered our ram mount for, and it is located kind of right behind this cigarette outlet. So all you have to do is with these, I think they're 4mm hex keys, there's 3 of them, one back there. This side panel pops off, and there's a wire kind of right behind here that is labeled nav. That's what we're going to wire up to our Zumo mount, and as you can see, I have it kind of zip tied up under here just to allow it to extend and contract without really pulling anything. And then pretty easily we can just take our Garmin, align on the bottom, and it clips right in. Very solid, really doesn't vibrate a whole lot, and can be adjustable for angle. Again guys, I'm really trying to find the ultimate navigation solution for the motorcycles. So far, I really think this is probably going to be where I stop with this bike. I think that's going to be everything I need and solve all the problems that I've been having with it. I'm really excited to use it on a road trip down to Texas this year. I think it's going to be a phenomenal sort of thing. It's not going to overheat, lose signal. The first year we went to Austin and I was relying on the Sygic navigation inbuilt and had my phone in the case here. My phone would overheat right when we were going through Austin in an unfamiliar area, and the navigation would blank out and we'd basically be lost with nothing. When I switched to the ram mount last year, Overall, I never had an issue with it. It would stop charging at certain points, but it never died. It never let the battery get down that low without not charging it. And it really seemed a pretty decent solution. But if I wanted to find a fun route or do something other than just efficient navigation, it really wasn't up for the task. Cue this Garmin, who now should be fully able to handle anything we're going to throw at it, on-road, off-road, in areas without cell coverage. Regardless, this thing is going to handle route planning and navigation. This is not meant to be a all-encompassing tutorial on how to use this thing. That is its own video, 100%. There's a couple of them out there about route planning and GPX file creation and all that sort of thing. It can get really advanced if you want it to, but if you don't want it to, this thing does a lot of the heavy lifting for you and really creates some fun routes by itself with minimal input on your part. As always, guys, I'm going to leave links to all these things in the description below. If there's any questions you have about any one of my solutions here or anything that you've tried, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to discuss in the comments. I know this is going to be something that is very individual for most people and have a lot of different possible ways of solving this particular navigation problem. If the phone is good enough for you, that's great, but I really think this is going to be the ultimate solution most people are looking for. As always, if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. I'd certainly appreciate it. Like I said, if there's any questions you have or anything you want to see in the future, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, stay tuned and we'll be back soon.